Hey, Sox fans, welcome back to Locked On. Well, I was about to say welcome back to Locked On White Sox because I do that every single day, or I used to. Welcome back to Good Guys Talk Back, an emergency episode. How about that? Told you, folks, when I was working, going to go solo and focus my attention on Good Guys Talk Back, there might be, some when news breaks here and there, we might get a new episode. And boy, did news break. Thank you so much for joining us on the YouTube channel, live. Jump in with the comments. We appreciate it. The audio will drop and available absolutely everywhere. Huge things to talk about here on episode 234 with a diehard Sox fan, my co-host, my very good friend, Pat Hester. Hello, sir.
Yeah, I was confused why you asked me wanted to do an emergency podcast with the Sox being down 4-1 in the top of the sixth. Did you want to break down the game?
And yesterday's. I would have loved to go down the rabbit hole on yesterday's game too.
Yeah, let's break down those first, and maybe we'll save a sliver of maybe 5 minutes towards the end, and we can get to the big news of the day. I'm very excited, and I have a bottle of this very cheap champagne that I've been saving for a special occasion. It's been sitting out in my garage. It's not cold. I don't know what would happen if I open it up, but maybe we just pour it all over ourselves, Nick, and I'll pour it virtually over your head and over my head, and we can celebrate today because there will finally be change coming to the South Side. The next move is to get the hire correct, but there will be change. Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn will no longer be in charge and making the moves for this organization ever again.
Yeah, White Sox announced Tuesday that Williams, executive vice president, and Hahn, senior vice president, general manager, were relieved of their duties effective immediately. That's my favorite line in that, effective immediately. This isn't on the hot seat, or we'll see what happens at the end of this season. They are gone. This was Reinsdorf's write-up. Ultimately, the well-worn cliche that professional sports is results-oriented is correct. While we have enjoyed success as an organization, we're optimistic heading into the competitive window of this rebuild. This year has proven to be very disappointing for all on many levels. This has led me to the conclusion that the best decision for the organization moving forward is to make a change in our baseball department leadership. And what a change it is. On our last episode, Pat, which it feels like, wow, it was just not too long ago that we were talking about Bob Nightingale's write-up on the interviews. And we had some fun with maybe, was it just concession people that Jerry is pulling in and talking to, and who is running the meeting? Is it the super rope guy? Did he somehow have such a good answer to a question about change? And he's like, you know what? You're the one now in charge. But it sounded like from a Nightingale tweet today that Jerry was actually making these interviews. He was really doing the due diligence, I guess, if you're going to believe Nightingale. So he was the one that was doing the vetting and figuring out just scratching his head. I like to see him just at night, just wandering kind of the concourse, just scratching his head like, what has gone wrong here? I can't figure this out. How is this happening? I don't know. I feel like I trust these two gentlemen. They like the son to me, Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn, of course, but what I don't know what to do. How can we do anything differently? And eureka. This was the thing that needed to happen.
Yeah, and it was long overdue. I've been getting texts from family members and friends, as I'm sure you have, and people that aren't Sox fans, asking me how I feel, and I just returned a text to my father-in-law telling him that this is long overdue, and texting with some people at work and just saying, well, now the next step is to get the hire right? The next move is. Yeah. And your flesh and blood, son, your cousin, put out in the world, Chris Getz coming down the pipe, and licking his chops. So hopefully that doesn't come to fruition. But it's an exciting time with some change. But I don't understand how it could have come to this. Like, it took so long to go, this really isn't going well. And I really don't, maybe I need to talk to my people and figure out what they think about it. I mean, at the
Well,
end,
that's a sad thing, right? Like
yeah,
that's
I mean, it was
that's
probably,
what we've
this is Fez 7 years overdue, maybe,
Oh,
right?
it's well overdue, and I think this is what we as Sox fans and folks listening and have been with us for so long, Sox fans that are been fans longer than you and I have been fans. I think so many people have seen it, even outside of White Sox Nation, even nationally. I used to have. I've told you, like, lockdown hosts from different teams that before we would record or after we would record, they would say, and by the way, why are things done the way they are with the White
Hmm.
Sox organization? Why is Rick Hahn still employed? Like, why does Jerry even still want to own the team? What's Kenny Williams' purpose? And good on them for knowing those individuals, within our organization. And that's what I would just have to say is exactly. I'm so glad you're seeing that. And if you're seeing that in some other city, baseball city, can you imagine what White Sox fans have been feeling for so many years? Like, figure it out already. But we knew how loyal Jerry was and how that type of change, I think for him, knowing him, right, and how he's operated with the Bulls and the Sox, it had to be slow and painful, unfortunately.
Yeah. And really the saving grace for Kenny and Rick was convincing Jerry that they needed to do a rebuild, which they did, but it allowed them to stay in their positions long enough to see the rebuild happen, get on track a little bit, and then quickly derail and fall off the tracks and off a hill and into a ravine and blow up. So that's where the current state of the White Sox is right now. They're in flames at the bottom of a ravine, and now it's going to be up to somebody else. But it's also interesting, Nick, too. The timing on this is also strange. With less than 48 hours ago, maybe it's 24 hours ago, the Cranes business report comes out, and Jerry talking about 6 years before their lease is up, talking about new stadium, moving out of the state, possibly going to Nashville. It's all very peculiar in how all this has transpired, and it's been a firestorm of Sox content and stories, one after another, of going back to the trade deadline and all the stuff about the infighting and the bad culture, and
The
it just has
Middleton
kind of
article, yeah, yeah.
snowballed into this really strange mess. And I would ask you, do you think this is finally rock bottom? Is it rock bottom? Or, as some folks had pointed out to me, it will never be rock bottom or be completely cleansed until Jerry is no longer the owner?
It's not completely cleansed until Jerry is gone. So we're celebrating as Sox fans. Because there is, we think there's going to be some sort of change. Now, if Chris gets just pumped down our throats, then it's going to be disheartening. Jerry leading the charge on this. Who is he bringing in? If he just wants somebody that is in still or is in good graces with Pedro Grifol, which I want to get to the Grifol thing eventually. Maybe it is Chris Getz, like, well, you've been around for a while. You're part of this organization. That's how we do things in White Sox world. So we're just going to shuffle you in. I hope that is not the situation. But, to your original question, like, I'm excited. I'm so happy and so excited. I never thought that this was going to happen, at least not the way it has happened.
At least
But
not both of them at the
no,
same
not
time.
both of them at the same time. Wham! Before September. But we know that Jerry selling the team, Jerry out as owner, that's what we're all hoping for. And I don't know, the murmurs and the stuff about, the reverse boycott that is supposed to still happen on Thursday, August 24th, and the Middleton stuff and Lance Lynn backing that up, and just flat out the way this thing has gone, this rebuild, like, we use Seinfeld references, quite often because you and I are such fans. And it's when Babu, got convinced by Jerry to do, change his restaurant,
Yeah.
and Jerry in the show, Seinfeld is kind of like Hahn and Williams put together, convincing Reinsdorf, do the rebuild. No, do the rebuild. It's going to be great. And Babu changes the restaurant, of course. You see customers, no customers. And Reinsdorf, I think now, this past couple of weeks are like, championships, wins, where are they? I don't see them.
Yeah.
Bad man, very bad men. And so there you go.
Do you think either one of them will get another major league job and at least the capacity they had at this organization ever?
I don't know. Just because of what Kenny Williams Kenny Williams was coveted by, I believe, the Toronto Blue Jays years ago, and that was stopped by Reinsdorf. You got to credit Williams for of course, the World Series, and I think some successful teams, right? Above 500. Hahn, what have you done, man? You won a couple off seasons, by flipping assets that have really not amounted to much. Back-to-back playoff, appearances, one division title. So I'm not looking to give him a gig. I'm not at all. And I'm not even looking to get him like, well, I really need to get the secret sauce on what's going on in Chicago on the South side. So I got to get him in because I want to like tap their intel on how they run that little tiny mom and pop shop. There's no way like, we can figure this out without getting him in here. So that's not happening in my mind.
Yeah, and I agree with you there because you look at the optics of Rick Hahn and okay, the way he talks to the media, which is the way he talks to the fans, right? That's the way, we converse with Rick Hahn because he's obviously not going on shows and he's obviously not paying attention to the cesspool that is X, not Twitter anymore. It's X.
Of course.
And that's how he converses, and he's always talking down to the fan and feeling like, and it's always this, I'm better than you mantra. It seems like he wasn't even able to make trades with other teams. There were teams that wanted to do business only with Kenny. And it seems like he rubbed the wrong people wrong in other organizations. Right. Yeah. And then you look at the way the firing goes, even it's this over love for Kenny. This is my son and he'll always be part of the family. And Rick's done a nice job too. Right. So it's that like little like, you've been along and you've somehow survived and you've been a good soldier, but I don't really have anything glowing to say about you. I know, just from people I've talked to that not huge fans of a Rick Hahn, no surprise, not shocking, I'm sure. And I just, I don't see him getting some type of, second chance certainly not as a GM. And I don't know that he would even be, it's not like he's scouted or helped develop players or anything like that, or had an eye for young talent. He certainly hasn't been able to land a big fish in terms of a free agent. So, there really is no value there really with a Rick Hahn in my mind. He did all the easy stuff. You and I could have traded Chris Sale for top prospects. We could have done that. So
maybe somewhere in some, not in a general manager role. I mean, boy, I would be shocked if that happened. It's got to be in some other consulting or who knows. Couple managerial questions. I mentioned Griffol's name. I do believe Griffol was a Rick Hahn hire. Rick Hahn had an opportunity. And maybe that's another reason of why this is done now. It's like, okay, I gave you a chance, and this is who you brought in, and you sold me on Griffol, and this is how we're going to do things, and it has not gone well. Of course, there's so many other things that go into it. Hahn very well could be selling Super Rope. And I don't know if I would buy a Super Rope from Rick Hahn, that's for sure. And I don't know how
successful you're eating it wrong and you're stupid.
Exactly.
You don't want that flavor. So you're done.
I don't see. Now I'm at a point where I don't think Griffol sticks around. Like if you're going to bring in somebody that's heading up this, Sox will begin a search for a single decision maker to lead the baseball operations department and anticipate having an individual in place by the end of the season, which is 6 weeks away. So if you're going to bring in a single decision maker, I would hope you would let that single decision maker say, make some decisions. Okay. If that's not the guy you want, if Pedro Griffol's not the person you want managing, he's gone. We're going to do this a completely different way. I've gotten rid of Williams. I've got rid of Hahn. It is a different way. Maybe there's an Ebenezer Scrooge situation here, where Jerry was visited by, 3 ghosts, this the last couple days, and he wakes up and he's just, has a completely different mindset, and he's ready.
Really? He's running around in his pajamas, throwing nickels at people, telling them to buy the fattest goose.
Well, it was worth a lot in my day when I was a kid. So that's the only thing I could think of with that. So I don't think Grifol sticks around. Do you think it's that easy just to dismiss Pedro Grifol now?
Well, I think he has until the end of the season. I think whoever comes in is not going to fire him right away, but I think there's going to be an evaluation. It does frighten me a little bit. Not so much as I like the idea of having one decision maker. There's a GM, and the GM makes the decisions for the baseball team. But there should be somebody above him as their boss, right? Evaluating the general manager. I think if you fail to put a president of baseball operations or something in place and let that person hire the general manager, I think, again, you're going a little bit ass backwards with this, as the White Sox normally do. You should have somebody evaluating the general manager that is going to put, okay, here are your key performance indicators. In the next 3 years, we want to have, maybe we're not in the playoffs, we're knocking down the door, whatever the timeline is, whatever the metrics are that you want to put in place. And then everybody's aware of what the goals are, right? And if you're not there in 3 years, we're going to reevaluate, you as in your position. We'll take into consideration maybe some injuries or whatever other factors you want to take into consideration that are outside of that person's control. But there shouldn't be just one person, and that person reports to Jerry, because Jerry shouldn't be involved in any kind of baseball decisions or operations. He did that with hiring Tony La Russa, which, by the way, do you see the picture of Tony La Russa?
Yeah.
Good Lord, he looks terrible.
Yeah.
I hope he's in okay health.
I'm wondering if there's some advanced health issues there.
Good. The Sox aged him 25 years. That's amazing. I didn't understand that was possible. But yeah, I mean, if the idea is to bring in a general manager to make decisions and then later on hire that person's boss, I would rather them just take their time. Right? Why does it have to be by the end of the baseball season? Because free agency won't start until after the World Series anyway. So why don't you just wait and see and really scour and look around at the best people? Who is that GM right now that is ready for a promotion to be a president of baseball operations, right? And then that person brings in that next up and coming general manager from another organization.
Maybe they've got that person, that name already. And that's why it's 6 weeks. They know, but they're not saying it. I didn't get the impression like this is going to be a massive search. Like we're just going to cast a huge net and we are going to, flip over every rock possible to find this decision maker. I didn't get that, but again, the fact that this happened, then we might be in a whole new, am I being naive to think that we might be in a whole new way of doing things? If this bombshell happened, well, then anything's kind of possible.
Well, is anything possible? Sydney puts in the chat, and other people have suggested Theo Epstein. If that's the case, and I guess that's the only scenario in which I would go, okay, I get it. You've decided to bring in, one of the best that has turned around organizations. He's left them in a complete disaster when he's left them, but he's been able to grow and build, and he's smart enough, good enough, and doggone it, people like him. He's going to turn the organization around and give you transparency on a plan, but that's going to do something that this owner and this ownership group is not comfortable with, and that's spending a lot of money. And Theo would expect full autonomy on every decision to be made.
Right.
And you tell me, don't even tell me what the budget is, right? Not that Theo, I don't think is going to be that he's a guy that's going to, spend tons of money just to spend tons of money. But I also don't think he wants to be told, well, the budget's $150 million, right? It'll be, well, that's not going to get us anywhere. We need it to be this. And if you're giving me full control, I'm going to decide how much it's going to take to put a competitive team out there.
I've heard the Theo stuff, and our buddy Sylvie has talked about it. And the thing with that for me is, if you bring Theo in, to your points, Pat, then that means you're ready to get very uncomfortable if I'm Jerry Reinsdorf, because then I have to like really be welcoming in people into the organization, probably more people than I'm comfortable with, and people that are going to explain to me in certain words that I've been doing things wrong, and these other people have been doing things wrong, and I have to recorrect all of these things, and bring in a lot of personnel that aren't going to simply say, yes, sir, yes, Jerry. Like, they're here to win, and they're going to want to be paid to do it. So that's my thing with Theo.
And it also means that there's going to be other people in that front office that are going to be shown the door. Right.
Sure.
It's going to be
I hope.
Right. It not only is going to grow the front office, which is one of the smallest in Major League Baseball, it's going to put people that, have been quote unquote loyal to this organization, that maybe were people that were interviewed and told that you need to be changed. And oh, by the way, you're going to be one of the people that's going to be changed. It's going to be a very interesting scenario. I would give that the Theo Epstein a 2% chance of happening. I think there's a better chance it snows tomorrow.
Okay, let me throw this thing at you then.
Okay.
Better chance of Theo Epstein coming into the White Sox organization, or Ozzie Guillen becoming the next manager?
Oh, I think it's Ozzie Guillen being the next manager. I think the fact that Rick specifically, maybe not Kenny, that Rick specifically is gone, would lend the fact that you bring home the prodigal son and Ozzie Guillen and let him, be the manager again. And really, as long as he isn't a complete distraction and goes the way he was going towards the end of his run, he might be able to have a job for the rest of his life if he wanted it, because of the loyalty factor of a Jerry Reinsdorf.
Yeah. Here's my, just one of the many theories. Like, if you are right now thinking you're going to struggle with ticket sales, fan base morale is at an all-time low, you may not really be competitive in 2024, not even in the AL Central. Jerry's making the call here. Hahn and Williams are gone. You bring Ozzie in, and I know a lot of people won't like it. I get all of that, and I don't even know if it's the right situation for this moment. But you will also pique the interest in a lot of fans.
Oh yeah,
you will get people back interested in this White Sox team. That's just, I could see that side to it. And I can see that route. And but that depends on who this decision maker is. And if Jerry gives that decision maker the power to make all the choices, or if Jerry says, I really am interested in bringing Ozzie back, what do you think about that? Like, hint, hint, kind of, that's what I really want to be done. Make it happen. And they're like, look, you're giving me all the control, or how does this game work? And so there's a lot to unpack there.
So I guess I'm curious to know, like, the whole like moving and selling the team, and that does that have anything to do with what happened today? Do you think, in terms of maybe Jerry looks at it and goes, okay, I've got a 6-year lease on this stadium. I would like to increase the value as much as I can when I'm ready to sell it, which is sooner rather than later. I've really got to make some changes. Is he doing all this because now he's really become desperate to try and make this as shiny of a selling point to somebody else as possible? Because again, we mentioned it and we talked about it before, when it was La Russa, right? And then it was, boy, he's going to give Tony everything that he needs to win, because he's not going to let his buddy flounder. So he's going to go out there and actually spend money in the offseason and fill in the pieces. And that never actually happened, right? Because I thought the clock is ticking on an 87-year-old owner, and he would like to win one more. But I really think he's motivated not by winning, but maximizing his value in his pocketbook. And I think maybe this is a move to increase the value, right? Is that the motivation over winning? But he realizes that he has to put something out there that's interesting and has the potential to win for somebody to come and want to buy it. Or is it, it's professional sports and it's going to go for over $1 billion anyway? What's the difference?
Yeah, the stadium thing is interesting because it gives me all those late 80s vibes of, him kind of holding the team hostage, with the whole Florida situation. And then he got this deal, the taxpayers funded it. I mean, he doesn't own this stadium. I don't even think he owns all the parking lots. I believe some of them are privately owned, which again, all the different sweetheart deals that, people know that are out there. There are articles about this. There's some really interesting stuff on how all this went down back in the late 80s, with old Comiskey and new Comiskey and the threat of leaving the south side of Chicago. I don't know if he looked at what the Bears are doing and he's like, oh, that's possible to leave Chicago and I could go to the suburbs, or I could just, throw out cities or different locations, or, maybe he's just thinking of things differently, but it might be to shine up the product a little bit. But it went from 19 million when he bought it in the early 80s. It's worth what, 2 billion Forbes estimates it at. So yeah, I mean, if it's a more successful, something more attractive for an owner of like, oh, I can own my own stadium as well. Wouldn't a new owner want to own the stadium?
Yeah, you would think so.
I mean, you'd think like that would be part of it, to do what they want, especially, just having say in development and all that other stuff. So you've got a fan base here. I mean, Sox have, depending on what they've been around a long time. You can say 1900, 1901, but they've been at the South Side for a long, long time. And you've got a built-in fan base in one of the largest markets in the country. And you're going to move to Nashville to try to create some buzz there, or you're going to, I mean, I know MLB wants to expand. I've heard Portland, I've heard Nashville, but you're going to take the Sox out of Chicago to do that. I just don't see that happening. Now to the burbs, possibly, I could see that, there's land opportunities out there. It sounds like he is just having like a complete like awakening. Like, I'm seeing things clearly now. I could sell, I could, get a different stadium. But the whole threat, which this very well could just be a threat to get a different deal that the taxpayers are going to front. That's insane to me. Like, buy your own stadium, build your own stadium, fund your own stadium as an owner. Don't get taxpayers to do this all over again and try to.
Well, again, Nick, you have to remember, this is a guy that was successful in doing this one time before. He just going, okay, what was the playbook back then? Okay, sure. Threaten to leave. All right, I'll threaten to leave. But again, times have changed. It's not 1983 anymore for sure. So, in the
88, I think rather. It was, yeah.
So things are a little bit different. I don't think anybody's going to give him that kind of a sweetheart deal where you don't have to pay rent. Whether you draw under 1 million fans or you draw over a 2.5 million, you're going to pay something this time. Whoever allowed that to happen is, that's the worst business deal on the other end of it of all time. And for Jerry, what a sweetheart deal, right? I don't have to worry about packing this place. We can be mediocre. We've talked a lot about before with the revenue sharing with what they already get from Major League Baseball because of the TV deals. So why would I?
And you had some politicians in play that were Sox fans.
Yeah.
And they could not stomach the fact that their beloved White Sox could be leaving the South Side. So let's kick the can down. This team ain't going anywhere. And they had people barking at them in their ear of, you better figure this out, because there are generations and generations of Sox fans that we just, this isn't going to happen. And I think Jerry kind of knew that and knew who he was dealing with, and he could play that game because he had him right where he wanted him. I don't know if that's the case anymore. It's a
And why
very
does
different situation.
and why now when the ballpark is, I'd say, 25% better than it was when they opened it up, are they talking about needing a new stadium? Now, my stance on it. I would have loved them, and people will probably hate me for this, but I would have loved for them to be somewhere downtown. Not again, dream scenario, somewhere downtown, somewhere where it's a little bit more appeasing, or it's got that cachet where more and more people are willing to go to. Again, parking would be a nightmare. But again, just think about it. For me, putting it where Soldier Field is on the lakefront, having home runs hit into Lake Michigan, like in McCovey Cove out in San Francisco, a cool backdrop like that. A place like in St. Louis with a ballpark village with fantastic place and amenities and places you want to hang out before and after the game. Again, the South Side is fantastic. It's a great place to go and tailgate, and there's a great culture there. I'm not saying anything bad about it, but it is, 2023 now. Sports has changed. If you're going to have a stadium, it's not just the stadium, it's the property around it, as you mentioned. And owners got to have stake in that property, because it's not just the game day experience. It's not just 81 games. It's not 81 home games. It's all the opportunities that can come with it outside of the baseball season that are revenue generating opportunities. So you got to look at it from that perspective. And I don't know if this owner is willing to or able to look at it that way. But somebody else will. Some other owner, whoever the next owner is, I think should look at it that way. And can you do, say what you will about what the Cubs did on the north side, and it's unrecognizable in Wrigleyville, but people will go there, and they always will go there. They always did go there before, but now it's a completely different situation in terms of the money that they're raking in up there.
Yeah, it is a completely different situation. It's a, it always used to be tagged Wrigleyville. I mean, and it is that now. It's a whole its own city, pretty much. What they have done over there, gobbling up different properties, and the hotels, and gosh, the amenities. It's insane. Just being up there, driving around. Meeting you up, when you had a work situation going on. If you would have dropped me there and not really told me, I would have taken me a while to kind of collect my bearings, because it just, from years ago, completely different situation. Now, do you like that? Do you hate that? I mean, I bet your residents of that area are like, this is insane. I hated when they put lights in, and now I got to deal with the zoo. And I don't know if Bridgeport residents really want that. They want
I
that
highly
big
doubt it.
experience.
And I don't blame them either. It's their home, right? It's
Exactly.
like, I have a home. I wouldn't want a bar and a restaurant outside in my front yard. I wouldn't want that. But the resale value, if you didn't want to live there anymore, would be fantastic.
Right. Right. So it's interesting that came out, and that was worthy enough to fire up the microphones. But then this Hahn and Williams stuff, that really threw me off. I mean, you're hearing some whispers, you're reading into some of the Hahn quotes over the last couple months, kind of cryptic, on how he was phrasing things, almost like he might not be in charge anymore. And I thought if anybody was going to go, it would have been Hahn. I think Kenny would have stuck around in some capacity, but to axe them both at this time now, I don't know. And it also is a timely thing. The season ticket holders are going to be asked very soon to start looking at your invoices. I mean, late August, maybe early September, you're going to get your bill, and how you structure payment, or whether you're in or whether you're out. And I know I've spoken to a lot of season ticket holders that have said, if they're not out already, or they're not already in, they're like, you need to show me that there's some sort of change.
Yeah.
Okay. I need to see either Hahn gone or Williams gone. I need to know big direction, not just like what fourth or fifth arm you're going to be going after in the starting rotation or anything like that. Or a new strength and development program. I need to know the upper, front office. So releasing this news now, I mean, I don't know. It might change people's thoughts, when that bill comes around.
It may, Nick, and it'll be interesting to see, over the next coming weeks what the rumors are going to be about who what is this search going to look like, who's going to be in town to take an interview, or is he like you said earlier, maybe they've already got somebody earmarked for a position already that they're going to just move along. I cannot imagine. I would imagine that with all the interviews they did, that people would say you have to get somebody from outside of this organization to have fresh eyes and ears and thoughts on what will work to change and turn around the dynamic of this organization. But again, it is the White Sox. We know that how they've functioned over the years and how Jerry has functioned over the years. I don't know that I completely trust it yet. But as we watch both of these huge stories unfold, one of them, being the sale of the team possibly, and the moving and the stadium and all that stuff, as Sharizi from the 108 podcast pointed out, the lease is up in 6 years. Let me know in 6 years where they're at. So they're not going anywhere for a while. So that story can be put on the back burner for now. But it'll be interesting to see like what the rumor mill starts to be and the reaction. And again, I don't know that you and I'll know, like, okay, whoever they bring in, there's a good chance you and I are not going to know who this person is. We're going to never heard they came from this organization. They're this, they're that. So we're going to have to really give them a lot of time, or him.
And I
or
would
her.
think that would be good. If I've never heard of them before, that means that they're not a former White Sox player that stuck around in some sort of scouting role, or managing in some, farm system program. It means that they're from outside the organization, and hopefully it's a smart, a well-run organization. Who is working with Jerry? He almost needs to hire a consultant, somebody that really knows, okay, what's your vision for this ball club? What are you trying to do here? And here are the names. These are the names that you really want to look at and bring them in. Because if he is doing this on his own, I fear that we might be in a lot of problems. That's why he's just going to just like, this is more difficult than I thought. Chris Getz, it's your job, and that's what obviously nobody wants that. If you're going to do this and you're going to create this big bombshell and create the change, well, go further. The Field of Dreams quote, right?
Go the distance.
Go the distance. And I don't know. I don't know some of those names. I got to look through those names. I got to go over those names. Daryl Boston better stay out of White Sox business. That's what I would say to him. It's just like count your games, because he's got to be gone too. Daryl Boston and the Super Rope guy. They've got more pull in this organization than anybody else I would ever imagined. But hey, there's a lot of things that still have to fall into place. But take the news on the surface. What happened? Hey, Hahn and Williams are gone. Just process that. And my mind is spinning, as I'm sure so many other Sox fans are like, well, what's going to happen with this? Could they go in this direction? Right? Stay right here. Yeah. Hahn and Williams are gone. That's big news.
Yeah. And we'll always remember Rick for his one-liners, tune in. We've tuned into your firing. We'll see after the parade. Maybe we have a parade for his firing in his honor. We'll tune in to.
There's some unofficial parades happening right now all over the place. It's something that we've been waiting for a long time, and it brings no extra joy in where this team is, what has happened to this team. Mm-hmm. The reality of the failed rebuild, and man, what has gone on with this 2023 team. But you see a little bit of light, I guess. And that's just me being hopeful. Yeah. I'm trying to stay hopeful. This brought a lot of hope to me for what the Sox could be doing in the next few years.
Well, here's hoping, I guess. I'll just kind of resort back to what I said a while before. I said it in our last episode. The first half of the season will determine the next 5 years of this organization. It certainly has, because again, depending on who's brought in and what they're given the ability to do, they probably will not be competitive, as you mentioned, in 2024. That leads them into 2025. It's small steps in baseball, Nick. It's not typically a worst to first scenario like it is a lot of times in NFL divisions. It's
right.
like, okay, it's this guy's coming along now, and it's the next guy coming in, and this free agent. It takes a long time to get that many players all hitting on the same level at the same time, and it's going to be painful a little bit, but it could be also fun if we see someone with a great vision come in that has some, a little bit of acumen to back it up, and a little bit of a success behind them in whatever role they'd had before and whatever organization they were in. And, we can kind of see along with them the vision and have the transparency of knowing who's making the actual decisions at all times. Where does the buck stop, and who's reporting to who, and who's making the trades, and who's making those decisions. So if that's the case, it could be a fun time, even though the team probably won't win a lot of games.
Yeah. Again, like, you could shuffle around the player personnel, you can shuffle around the coaching staff and do all this stuff, window dressing. But until you really start, ripping out the guts and getting down to the core of it, then you're going to, I think, see some stuff that'll ripple to the outside. And today was a big day for that. Man, always a pleasure, buddy, talking White Sox with you. This was fun. This was a quick turnaround, but this is, what happens, now that Good Guys Talk Back is the main focus.
Well, we could stick around for another like half hour and do a post-game breakdown of the game. The Sox currently down 6-2 in the starting at the top of the ninth inning. Do you want to?
I don't know if I have the stomach to go through Clevenger's line and all that. It's the product is so rough right now. I feel like we'll chop that up maybe on Sunday's show.
Well, I'll just take notes as I have been diligently throughout this entire game, and save those for Sunday night's show.
I just got flashbacks from some lockdown days. This is a rough team, man, but this was exciting stuff today. Folks, thank you so much for jumping in on this emergency podcast. You can find this podcast absolutely everywhere you find your podcast. Pass it along to other Sox fans. We try to do this weekly, 8:00 on Sunday nights on our YouTube channel. Join us live, jump in the comments. Appreciate all the great stuff that we've had today and have over the last several episodes. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you'll get notified, obviously, if we jump on for any impromptu episodes when news breaks. Pat, unless something big happens, probably won't talk to you until Sunday, but you never know. This has been a wild week.
Every time we record something, big news happens to break. So it'd be nice if they just waited till maybe Saturday for something to break, and then we could talk about it on Sunday. But we'll see.
Buddy, until next time, my friend. It was a pleasure, folks. Again, on Twitter or X at Good Guys TB. Got a Facebook page. For Pat, Hester, I am Nick Murawski. Until next time, go Sox.